What's going on, guys? Justin with 1791. Thanks for watching. Today we're taking another educational journey, and this time today we're talking about self-defense fighting rifle fundamentals. So let's get into it. All right, so to start off, I want to make sure I preface this properly in that I'm going to do my level best to condense 20 years of perfecting my own personal capacity for using a fighting rifle into maybe like a 20 or 30-minute video. So there may be things that I leave out or things that I kind of gloss over. And if I gloss over something that's really important to you, go ahead and leave it in the comments. We can address it there. Or maybe that sparks off the importance of doing another video or maybe like a part 2 of this. So I just want to make sure I preface that correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and give you guys like a table of contents of how this is going to go. We're going to talk about 3 M's today. The first M is marksmanship as it applies to a self-defense fighting rifle. The next M we're going to talk about is manipulation, how we manipulate that fighting rifle, not just to get marksmanship, but how to use it in a fighting context. Because something that I learned a long time ago from a friend of mine named James Yeager, the root word in gunfight is not gun, it is fight. So how do we manipulate that fighting rifle appropriately in that context? And the last thing that we're going to be talking about, and probably the most important thing we're going to talk about, is movement. And essentially how to move in a space with a fighting rifle, maybe even in the absence of structures that would create cover. How do we move to maximize our ability to use this effectively and also simultaneously minimize our chances of becoming injured in that environment? So now that you guys have the table of context, I want to talk about something real quick that the internet always wants to know about, and that's like gun setups, right? I'm going to briefly gloss over that because I feel like there's a lot less value in that and a whole lot more value in the rest of this video. So as you can see on the table before me, I have 4 different fighting rifle setups. I could have put more on here. A few months ago, I did a video about the SKS, or maybe about a month ago, I did a video about the SKS and its viability as a fighting rifle. For me, an SKS is like a fighting rifle if you don't have one of these. You know what I mean? SKSs are great rifles, but I believe that the AR-15 is superior by a long shot. So I'll talk about a couple of different AR setups here. We'll start from this end and go over here. So over here, I have a little bitty 300 blackout AR pistol. I have Aimpoint T2 on there, little light on the front. Now this is a pistol light, not necessarily ideal for a fighting rifle, but this is really intended to be an inside of 100 yards rifle. So I have a pistol light on there. Again, not ideal, really should be more of a proper fighting rifle light, but that definitely works because this is kind of intended to be like a pistol range tool that is more effective than a pistol. I have a side folding brace adapter here just to make sure I can get this thing nice and compact. This is like kind of my road trip gun, you know what I mean? So that I have something a little bit more capable than a pistol, something that hits harder with a 300 blackout. I only run supers in this thing. I don't run a 300 blackout because I want the quietest thing since sliced bread. I specifically run a 300 blackout in this context because you can get literally AK level terminal performance in a very, very short package. Usually a 7.62 by 39 or a 300 blackout with supers, it's going to perform better in many regards than a short barreled 5.56 just because that heavier bullet really does well with those shorter barrels. So very, very simple setup there. Something I have set up over here is a little bit more of kind of like almost like a fighting rifle configuration, even though this is still an AR pistol. This is a 10.5 barrel. I have Aimpoint Compound 5S on here with a Surefire light. And I ran this through a 5-day high-risk civilian contractor small unit tactics class. We were testing specifically this new product that we're coming out with a different brand called 1791 Industries. It's an ultra lightweight metal that is 33% lighter than aluminum. And the whole reason that we tested this in that small unit tactics class is literally like a 5-day, 1,600 rounds, kind of like a simulated war zone where you have to essentially do contractor related things in that environment. Wanted to make sure that we tested this equipment or this technology in that kind of environment because we're really kind of developing this for the duty space. So very, very lightweight setup. This entire 10.5 system with iron sights, optic, and light. This thing weighs literally 5 pounds and 10 ounces. When I was in the Navy doing counter-piracy stuff, my Mark 18, I carried a Mark 18 Mod 0. It literally weighed like 9 pounds. So awesome setup here. Now, the reason why I have this set up in this way, because when I was doing that small unit tactics course, my role on the team was I was our team medic. Obviously, I'm a rifleman first, but my primary role was being a medic. And for doing medic-related things, I really liked having this more compact package because I can get it out of my way when I was treating a casualty. But that is kind of one way that you could set up a rifle. Another way that this really kind of shines, this is an awesome home defense style package, nice and short, easy to manipulate in and around tight spaces. You could throw a can on here to help mitigate hearing damage if you were to need to use a rifle like this in those close environments. I will tell you that a 10.5 setup, they are extremely loud, and that is only compounded inside of structures. Trust me, I know. Outside of that, this other setup I have here, this is my Colt Car 15 carry handle upper. I have a Trijicon TA44 mini ACOG on here, and I have a truck gun sling from my buddy Andrew over at Combat Art Training. He does some cut and sew design and manufacturing as well. But that's an awesome sling because it stows really tight to the rifle. That was my phone, not yours, sorry. It stows really tight to the rifle so that it's less of a snag hazard because I have this sitting right behind my seat in my truck. So this is my truck gun. So when I go to yank that thing out, it's less likely to snag on something. And if I need a sling for doing sling related things, I just grab this tab back here and I can pull out that extra slack, and then I have an actual sling. So that's pretty cool. I like that. I'm going to go ahead and restow that here. So 16-inch barrel, because for truck guns, doing truck gun related things, I may need to be able to reach out a little bit further than 100 yards. I can very effectively hit at 300 meters with this, no problem. I can also pretty effectively hit at 300 meters with a 10.5. It's just that the ballistics out of a 10.5 barrel is a little bit limited at that range. That's why I have a 16-inch barrel. And that TA44 mini ACOG, that 1.5 magnification, it just helps the target seem not closer, but it gives me a little bit more target definition at ranges beyond 100 yards. I can still pretty much use that as a red dots because it's only 1.5 magnification. And the other nice thing is it uses tritium to absorb ambient light, automatically adjust to lighting conditions. I have a little piece of tape back here that I can put over that fiber optic and help dim it down if I'm in a really bright environment and I need a really fine aiming point. I can certainly do that. One thing that kind of sucks about this, though, is that in the absolute absence of light, for instance, if I am like in a space and it's very dark, I do have tritium that illuminates my reticle. But if I were to hit a light, if I were to light up something, it becomes a little bit more difficult to see my reticle. At that point, I'm basically just looking at a black reticle. Once I hit that light and light up the target zone, it doesn't automatically light up my fiber optic. So that kind of sucks, but it's something that you can work around and get used to. One thing you'll notice on here is I don't have a light on this rifle. I have lights on pretty much every rifle as a standard go-to. I always recommend having a light on a fighting rifle. But for this one here, I'm opting for as slick a profile as possible because this sits on a rifle rack that's right behind my seat in my pickup. And I just wanted one less thing to snag on or catch on or whatever. And there are lighting techniques. The first part of any fighting rifle solution is what do you carry with you? What's your EDC? And in my back left pocket, I always carry a Surefire light. And there are other lighting techniques that you can utilize to light a space if you need to. You know what I mean? And you can even make this even more stable by locking it in. Like you can literally just drive your elbow to the ground, your bottom of your forearm kind of rests against the mag well, and the top of your forearm rests against the top of the handguard, and that really kind of locks things in and makes it more shootable. So anyways, a truck gun kind of set up there. And then over here, I have literally my Apocalypse rifle, a true SHTF type of situation. I have a TA 31 RCO ACOG on there with a Trijicon SRO piggybacked on top of it for red dot stuff, and then the 4X for further stuff. I can very, very effectively and very repeatably hit at 500 yards with this, no problem. This is actually a 14.5 with a pin and welded flash suppressor. And then I have a Surefire can on the end of it. That's more for mitigating your visual signature because for those that are not aware, military folks primarily use silencers on rifles for flash mitigation, especially under nods. It does lower the sound of a silencer a little bit. Or I'm sorry, it does lower the sound of the rifle a little bit. But you can still very easily hear it at extended distances. One thing that it does do is it helps distort what is being shot and where exactly it is. So that's kind of nice there. Surefire Scout light on there. And then I have a Holosun LE321G laser aiming module there. And that's really all I'm going to get into. This isn't supposed to be a how to set up a fighting rifle video. This is supposed to be a how to use it video. So if you guys are more curious on rifle setups, how to set up rifles for a fighting rifle, different contexts, some people think that like you can set up one rifle to do everything. What I will say is there's diminishing returns to that. For instance, like if I had to grab one rifle here to run out and do most things, I would probably grab the Mark 18, even though this one has a lot more capability. It's just that this has a lot more capability in a more narrow scope of an environment. So this is kind of my worst case scenario rifle. This is kind of my do most things rifle, and this one is the one that I carry with me the most because this will do most of the things that I need to do in most normal civilian circumstances. And this one's more set up to be like a home defense gun. And again, this is like a travel gun, travel rifle. So that's it for the rifle overview. Again, I don't want to make this more about the gear. I want to make this more about the software, not the hardware. So getting into the 3 M's, again, those were marksmanship, manipulation, and movement. So each of those M's have their own set of criteria underneath them that are important to pay attention to. If you guys have already watched my self-defense pistol fundamentals video, this is going to sound very familiar, at least for the marksmanship portion of this discussion. If you haven't watched that video, I recommend you go watch it. You don't necessarily have to stop this video to go do it. It's just some really good context in that video. So the first thing when it comes to marksmanship is grip. And that's how are you gripping and interfacing with the rifle. One school of thought or one rule of thumb, you always want to make sure that you're gripping the rifle with your fighting dominant hand. For me, that's right-handed. And then everything else that I need to do with the rifle is going to be done with my support hand. We'll talk about that more in a little bit when we start talking about manipulation. So something to think about With a rifle, you have 4 points of contact on the gun versus 2 points of contact with a pistol. With the pistol, you have your right hand and your left hand. That's all you got. So everything else that you do with the pistol for marksmanship, all of those other fundamentals are very important, especially just the grip and the grip pressure and how you're integrating with that pistol. Rifles are a little bit more forgiving. So you have your pistol grip and you have your support hand grip. You have the stock, and then you have your cheek weld. You have 4 points of reference on that rifle to be able to utilize it, which is really kind of nice as far as having the best biomechanical connection to the firearm as possible. It's a lot easier to have a really solid biomechanical connection to the firearm if it is a rifle versus a pistol. The next thing is stance. Now, I'm going to briefly talk about stance because stance is only moderately important. So you want to have an athletic posture. You're going to be on the balls of your feet. You're going to have a slight bend in your knees. Maybe your support foot or your non-dominant foot will be slightly ahead of your right foot. Well, slightly ahead of your dominant foot. You're going to have a slight bend forward in the hips. You're going to have good posture. You're going to tighten up the muscles in your core. And then you're going to essentially mount the rifle. So that's a good athletic stance. And the reason why it's important for it to be athletic is twofold. Thing one, or reason number one, when you are forced to shoot in a standing, kind of a static environment, that good stance is going to best transfer the recoil from the rifle to the shoulder, through your spinal structure, through your lower body and into the ground. It's going to be the best conductor of that energy because that energy has to go somewhere. What we don't want is for that energy to go through your shoulder and tip your hips back or tip your upper body back. What that does is it throws off your sight alignment and it makes repeated shots very difficult. So you need to have like a good kind of a forward arching posture with the muscles in your abdominal region tensed up to help support that skeletal structure. The other reason why having a good athletic stance is important is because you need to move, all right? You cannot stand static in a gunfight. That is very, very dangerous. We're going to get into that more in a little bit when we start talking about the movement aspects of this. But having a good athletic stance is important because you might need to do athlete-related things when you have to use this rifle. All right. Next thing I'll talk about is sights. And before we dig real deep into sights, we'll talk about sight selection. So on this fighting rifle, for instance, I have my iron sights by use of the carry handle. There's a little hole drilled through the bottom of the ACOG because this is meant to mount in a carry handle. Essentially, if I compress my cheek down, I can actually look through my iron sights and use my iron sights as a backup without having to flip anything up or blah, blah, blah. It's just there. But for normal aspects, I can just use that mini ACOG just by kind of like tipping my cheek up. So right now I'm looking through the iron sights, tip my cheek up just a smidge, and I am behind the ACOG. Pretty nifty. It's very important to select optics that work best for your eyes. Some people have trouble with just a plain red dot, like an aim point or something like that. If people have like an astigmatism, that aim point can kind of blossom out and kind of go from being like a little dot to like a little star. I don't struggle with that, so I don't know what that affliction is like, but I understand it. That's one of the things that is nice about like an etched reticle like this ACOG. This is a circle dot reticle, very, very crisp, very easy to see, very clean. I really like that for doing precision shots. This optic has actually been through 4 tactical games. This optic used to sit on my BCM, and that's been through 4 tactical games, and it's been very good. I've been able to outshoot dudes with LPVOs with that optic just because the reticle is so clear. And marksmanship has a whole lot more to do with the shooter versus the gun. The gun and the technology and the optics, that certainly helps. and I'm not saying this to like toot my own horn, I'm just saying like skills are more important than hardware, but it is nice to have a very, very fine aiming reticle, especially when shooting at distance. So when you're talking about your sights, something else that I wanted to put into that conversation is your zero. So I really like to run a 36-yard zero. So these two rifles in the center are on a 36-yard zero, both the irons and the optical aiming solution. All of that is on a 36-yard zero. My 300 Blackout, I just have it on a plain old 25-yard zero. Just because I don't really intend to shoot it a whole lot further than that. But yeah, that's on a 25-yard zero there, especially because ballistically, the 36-yard zero is more for a 5.56. It's not really designed for a 300 Blackout. My ACOG setup over here, my BCM, the ACOG itself, I have zeroed at 100 yards so that I can utilize the ballistics that are baked into the reticle on the ACOG, the TA31 RCO. And then my SRO up here is defaulted to a 36-yard zero. One thing that I really like about the 36-yard zero, I actually learned about it quite a few years ago from Sean Ryan, before Sean Ryan was a podcaster. He was just like, you know, another ex-team guy slash former CIA contractor that, you know, talked about a bunch of gun stuff. And he really advocated for the 36-yard zero, which kind of prompted me to change to that. Anyways, one of the reasons why I really like the 36-yard zero is, like, let's say the center hole of the CD is like your point of aim, point of impact. Between muzzle and 300 meters, it's going to be plus or minus this, basically the dimension of that CD. In a perfect kind of a vacuum environment where there's no other external inputs on the bullet as it flies through the air. Again, like, the shooter is the biggest variable when it comes to marksmanship, but ballistically, the rifle itself combined with that zero will be plus or minus basically the size of that CD, which I really like that. Versus other zeros that are out there, they could be like plus or minus like the throat to like the belt buckle. That's just a lot of variable that I don't really like. And most of these setups, basically like red dot related setups, I like that 36-yard zero because I would really never try and shoot a red dot related system beyond 300 yards. Like, I guess if I really, really had to, I might, but that would only be if I had 100% you know, positive identification that I would need to do that, which is going to be extremely rare. That's going to be extremely rare even in like a shit hit the fan scenario, like without rule of law. That would be extremely rare that you would have positive identification beyond 300 meters that you would need to use deadly force. So that's a whole nother conversation, but just kind of have that in the back of your mind. That's where magnification is so important. So that's where that ACOG comes into play. That ACOG, I can definitely push that, you know, beyond 300 meters to 400 meters, 500 meters, 600 meters. Then that's kind of like the edge of where I'd be really comfortable using that ACOG. But yeah, magnification is very important when it comes to target clarity and definition at distance. So that also brings up the conversation of knowing your holds when it comes to sights and marksmanship. Knowing your holds is very important. So for instance, on this mini ACOG, something that I've learned a long time ago was on that reticle, there's a circle and a dot, and then there's a vertical post underneath it, right? And one thing that I learned in CQB distances, which was basically inside of 7 yards, kind of at that 3 to 5 yard range. And CQB distances, if I put the very bottom of that post where I want to hit, it will be point of aim, point of impact. Like literally I can pick which nostril or which pupil. That's how close that the bottom of that post is. And that has become so important to me that I actually, I wrote Trigicon a while back, and I asked them if I could have my scope sent back to have the bottom of that post have that kind of custom illuminated to light up at the bottom of that post too. And they denied my request, unfortunately, but maybe if this video goes viral, they'll change their minds. I would love to have a TA-44 mini ACOG with the circle, basically with a circle dot, and then basically another dot underneath it that is basically your bad breath distance CQB reticle. That would be like the perfect reticle as far as I'm concerned for the TA-44. So again, knowing your holds is very important. So that 36 meter zero or 36 yard zero, that is a great zero to where like you have to pay attention to your holds a little bit less. But something that is important to understand is the trajectory piece of that. Essentially, the bullet is coming up and it crosses your plane of vision first at 36 yards. And then between 36 yards and 300 yards, the bullet is somewhere above your aiming line. And then the bullet's going to come down again and cross that aiming plane again at 300 yards. Savvy? So especially when shooting at like 100 yards, it's important to understand that for this system and the way that I shoot, I need to understand that I actually need to shoot low. I actually, to get good, like let's say if I needed to like get a headshot at 100 yards, I'll need to actually aim pretty much kind of at the clavicle line to get like right in the credit card. So that's kind of how important those holds are. So if I were to aim, you know, under stress, if I were to aim like right at the head, if I needed to make a critical headshot at 100 yards, I might graze the top of their head. And, you know, if that shot really mattered, if that shot would save someone's life, if I were to make that shot, like I just screwed the pooch. You know what I mean? I missed my shot. So it's important to understand your holds at a very fundamental, almost like a muscle memory, like almost like a visual muscle memory level. That's how much it's important to train with these implements, understand your holds to be able to get it right. Next thing is breathing. There are two things to understand with breathing. First thing to understand is that you have a natural respiratory pause. So essentially when you exhale all of your breath, at the bottom of that breath, that is a respiratory pause. That is what a lot of precision shooters will advocate for. What people used to do is they used to take a deep breath and hold it, and then they'd shoot because that is a respiratory pause. The reality is that both are true because your breathing rhythm is much like a sine wave in electronics. You have peaks and you have valleys. Both the peaks and the valleys are natural respiratory pauses that can be utilized to create an environment for the best marksmanship possible. You can utilize both, it doesn't matter, because you don't necessarily always have time to be like, blow out all that breath and then you shoot. You don't necessarily have time for that. You might have time for, you know what I mean? Taking a quick breath and rip it. It just kind of depends on where you are in your breathing rhythm in that environment. But the other thing that I'll say, I said there was two things, thing one and thing two. Thing one is that you have respiratory pauses and your natural breathing rhythm has two respiratory pauses that you can utilize, both peaks and valleys. The thing two about that conversation is that in a fight, you don't necessarily have time to utilize a respiratory pause. There's been many times where I've had to make a precision shot on the move. Like I need to accurately get hits while I'm moving. So what is important in that environment is just remember to breathe, all right? Just remember to breathe. Because if you're just holding your breath while moving with a rifle and you're focused on other things, the chances of you passing out is pretty good. So just remember to breathe. Don't have labored breathing like hyperventilating or anything like that. Just as much as possible, try to maintain a natural breathing cadence while you are doing said activity. There may be spikes where you need to, let's say, like beat feet and get to a piece of cover, whatever. That's fine. Just remember to breathe while you're doing it. And when you have when you get to a piece of cover, it's important to try and collect that breathing as much as possible. Because when your breathing is labored, your body is going through physiological alarm responses, and it makes marksmanship more difficult when you have those elevated respiratory rate, elevated pulse, etc. Those body alarm responses make marksmanship a little bit more difficult. I can say that from very, very close experience being a tactical games competitor. It matters, all right? The next thing that I'll talk about is trigger or trigger manipulation. Most rifles are going to have a two-stage trigger. Some rifles have a single-stage trigger. What I will say on that topic is if you're unfamiliar with single-stage or two-stage trigger, I would advocate you go look that up and understand. I don't really want to dig into it too deep here, but just understand that your trigger is going to do certain things. Now, it's very important when you are ready to make your shot, you have your reticle centered on where you need to shoot, whether that be directly on or whether you need to do some sort of hold. You need to squeeze the trigger firmly and deliberately all the way to the rear, just all the way through. And it's going to go click and bang. So I have snap caps in this particular rifle, so I'm going to demonstrate what that looks like. So I have my aiming point and I'm ready to fire, so I'm going to flip the rifle into fire, and I'm going to slowly and deliberately squeeze the trigger all the way through the shot. Click. Now when that happens, the rifle is going to cycle, just like that. The rifle is going to cycle by itself, and what I need to do is I need to keep that trigger squeezed all the way through that shot, because if I need to make another shot, I'm going to slowly release the trigger. Release, release, release. Click. Now just to that click, no further. I still have firm pressure on the trigger in case I need to squeeze, 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 surprise, and fire again. And again, the rifle cycles, such is life. So that right there is called trigger reset. Trigger reset is probably one of the most important facets of having good rifle marksmanship, simply because if I were to just release the trigger all the way and then come back to the trigger, what that does is it creates a lot of inconsistency. Having constant tension in my trigger finger removes some of that inconsistency, and it keeps the extra slack in that rifle compressed. So when I need to squeeze that trigger to shoot again, I'm already at what you would call the wall. The wall on this two-stage trigger is essentially that second point of pressure. So you have your first point of pressure when you squeeze the trigger through and there's some mush and some slop. Eventually that slop, that stops, and you feel kind of like a hard ledge or a wall that you can feel it with your trigger finger. And that is literally the point of no return when that bullet's about to go, all right? So that's what is so important about mastering that trigger manipulation, because that does two big things. Number one, it gives you the best marksmanship that you can get out of a rifle by having good trigger manipulation, having slow and deliberate and constant pressure on the trigger to squeeze it all the way, not just to the shot, but through the shot. But what that also does is it sets up your trigger finger muscle memory in a position to where if you need to shoot quickly, you can do that. Like bam, 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 bam. Just because basically it's squeeze, release, click, squeeze, release, click, squeeze, release, click, squeeze, release, click. You're not just like slapping the trigger. That's going to give you that squeeze, release, click. That's going to give you the most consistent marksmanship within successive shots, like bam, 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 bam. Like if I need to like do a couple of shots as something's moving to take it down. So that's all I'm going to talk about with marksmanship. In the pistol video, I think I got a little bit more deep into it. I have some other topics I want to cover here. So the next thing is manipulation, loading, unloading, etc. So here we are talking about loading. So we're going to act under the assumption that this rifle is unloaded and I need to load it for the first time. So I'm going to insert my magazine with my left hand firmly till it clicks, and I'm going to give it a tug. What that tug does is it makes sure that it's actually in there so that when I'm shooting, the magazine doesn't just like fall out and hit the ground. So with a good firm grip, insert, tug. Next thing I'm going to do is with my offhand, I'm going to grab that charging handle with the rifle in this up position. Some folks call this the workspace. I'm going to grab that charging handle, pull it all the way back until it stops. I feel that it hit a wall, like it went to the point of no more travel. and then I'm going to release it, just like that. That has primed the system. So when it comes to reloading the rifle, I advocate for doing the same thing. So essentially, I'll hit my magazine release. The magazine is going to hit the deck. I'll get my next source of ammunition. I'm going to insert, tug, and then rack the charging handle. Now, I like to do that method whether the bolt is locked to the rear and the magazine is completely empty, or if I'm making like what one might call a tactical reload or just topping off. I'll do that same thing because that is easier for my body to do under stress, and I need to put less cognitive thought into the manipulation. Because in any sort of fight, whether it's a gunfight, fist fight, whatever, in any sort of fight, you need to dedicate a meaningful amount of cognitive thought to what is going on in that environment. And essentially doing the fighting thing, like that really needs to take care of itself. It needs to be muscle memory based on experience doing this. So what I like to do is I like to make sure that my muscle memory is as simplified as possible to where I really don't have to input really any sort of cognitive thought into how I'm doing that part, because I want all of my cognitive thought to be devoted to the environment. You know, what is going on in my environment? Are there innocent bystanders that might be harmed by my actions? Are means, opportunity, and jeopardy all present when I'm deciding to use deadly force so that it is a legally justified shoot? All of these things. You know, where is the closest law enforcement? Like, what is going to be their response time? Is there anyone around that might be able to help me? As you can imagine, there are so many things going on in that environment. I want to make sure that all of my cognitive thought is on the world around me, and I want my body to just know how to do this stuff, okay? That's why I don't like to do the emergency reload and then a tactical reload, and then there's the Saturday night reload, and I'm making stuff up now just to be facetious, but you understand my point. I like to do the same thing every time when it comes to loading and reloading this rifle. The next thing we'll talk about is presentation, and within that there's kind of a note of like your muzzle follows your eyes. So if I'm in an active environment where I reasonably believe that, you know, there's something dangerous going on, I like to have the rifle in this kind of like ready position. I like to have it up, not down. The reason for that is, like, if I'm in an environment and the rifle is down, like this is kind of like rest. You know what I mean? This is kind of a rest position as far as I'm concerned. Colonel Jeff Cooper would call this is like, I'm in condition yellow. The rifle is down and at rest. Now, if I were to go to condition orange, I reasonably believe that something dangerous is going on and I need to be ready to respond. I typically will have the rifle come into the up position, and I'm now actively looking for the thing that made me nervous to see if it's going to become a deadly force environment. So your muzzle follows your eyes. So when I'm in this up position, if I see something that, you know, makes me believe that I might need to use deadly force, I'm going to punch the rifle directly out in that environment or into that direction, and then I'm going to pull the stock directly back into my shoulder, and now I'm ready to shoot. Literally, when I'm focusing on a dark spot on a door right in front of me, and when I did that, literally the reticle landed right on that dark spot, just like that. So that's where your presentation is kind of important, because that is the quickest way to get your sights on the target. You know what I mean? So your sights follow your eyes. So let's look at this over here. Present, boom. And the reticle literally landed right on the thing that's over in that spot of the room. Your presentation is very important. There's lots of different presentations, lots of different ways to do it, different schools of thought. Excuse me. That's just one that I really like to do. You can do a presentation from the low ready too, but it looks a lot the same. You literally are going to punch the rifle out and pull it directly back into your shoulder, kind of while you're leaning into your good fighting stance, just like that. From the up position. You could even do it from the over the shoulder position. It looks the same. The the fundamental is the same. You're going to push the rifle out so that the stock clears the shoulder, and you're going to pull the stock directly back into the shoulder, and then you're ready to do fighting things. So now that is something that it takes a long time to get used to. It's a great idea to just do presentation drills a lot, kind of like a lot of concealed carry advocates. They advocate for doing dry fire, which is great. Something that I really advocate when it comes to understanding how to better utilize a fighting rifle, to just do presentation drills. You know, snap and you're in, snap and you're in. Kind of do it from, kind of pretend doing it from different environments. But the one that I typically default to the most is this kind of a ready up position, because versus a ready down. Because if I were in a CQB environment moving through a space, if I were to bring the rifle up to try and get on target, it can very easily be grabbed, and people can use gravity to hold it down, because people and human bodies weigh a lot. They can just grab it and put weight on it and push it down. Versus this here, I get to use my gravity. If I need to come around a space, I can use my gravity against them to get the rifle down into a better position. What I can do is, someone grabs the end of that, if I'm in the up position, is I can simply rip the rifle back and muzzle thump with the end of the muzzle to enact a little bit of what is called pain compliance, to get them to release their grip from the rifle. And if it becomes a deadly force environment, I can still shoot from that kind of like, this kind of like low compressed environment. I can simply like shoot inside of 3 yards. You don't need your sights for something like that. All right. Next thing I'll talk about is sling usage. It's very important to set up your fighting rifle sling appropriately. You can size it to your body. So just like that, I have the rifle kind of slung up and over my shoulder. And I can tighten it up if I need to just kind of stow it to my body. And then if I need a little bit of slack, I can pull that grab tab, and I can adjust how that sling fits to my body. Especially if I were to need to kind of swim out of that sling quickly, I can simply just take out some slack, swim out of it, and then I have a little bit more command over the rifle as far as needing to move it to different shoulder to shoulder. This sling you're looking at is actually our new Tac Leather Rifle Sling. It actually has suede over the shoulder pads, so that when that rides against your neck, that feels really nice. And then the grab tab and then the rapid adjust slider are actually all made out of leather. Feels nice in your hand. It's very grippy, but it's also not plastic and not prone to crack and break, and then your sling falls apart and your rifle hits the deck. So that covers manipulation. There's a whole lot more I could really get into with the manipulation, but the big things are loading and unloading, learning how to do that reliably, and then presentation of the rifle, doing that in a consistent way, and learning how to more consistently mount the rifle in a manner that orients the rifle in the direction that you want the sights to be aligned. Being able to just snap that into place is really good. So, all right, the last thing I want to talk about is movement. So the first part of it is fighting to cover, i.e. learning to shoot on the move. Just because something may happen when you're inside of this like possibly dangerous environment, where let's say something cracks off and you hear gunshots, and you see the individual that you have positively identified as the threat. You may need to fight your way to cover, meaning you present your rifle and you're shooting while you're moving towards cover, because you shouldn't just kind of stand there. You shouldn't just like stand and deliver. That's the most foolish thing ever. You definitely want to set yourself up to where you can fight on your way to cover. One of the best ways to do that is just by a casual walk while you're shooting, kind of like a casual heel-toe walk, depending on which orientation you need to go. Just a casual heel-toe walk while you're shooting. It's good to have some peripheral vision and some situational awareness, like a quick look of your eyes, make sure I'm going in the right direction, etc. I'm not going to trip over something. You don't want to get so threat focused that you run into a wall or trip over something. when you divert your eyes to make sure that you're going in a good direction, you want to make sure that your reticle was last left on the bad guy or in the bad guy's direction. Take a quick look, and then immediately you're looking back into your reticle. You don't want to just fire blindly while you're moving. That's extremely foolish. Don't do that. You definitely want to, when you're ready to do shooting things, your eyes should be looking at the reticle, and the reticle should be on the threat. Next thing I'll talk about is fighting from cover, just because different angles, proper usage of that cover. You don't want to be too far out on that cover to where like you're exposing a great portion of your body. And you want to be really careful not to allow other pieces of your meat to protrude from the cover that you didn't expect or weren't aware that they were protruding. This is very common with like knees and feet and elbows. Be very cognizant of where the rest of your body parts are when you're utilizing that cover. It's actually really good to get a blue gun, and if you don't have a blue gun, you can just use your hands and go with a buddy, and you can find a corner and you can practice kind of leaning out of that cover. Essentially, it should be muzzle and eyes, like muzzle and eyes when you lean out of that cover. You can use a buddy to visually look and see that you are properly utilizing that cover. And if you don't have any friends, you can just set up your camera downrange and just record it. I hope all of you guys have friends. I'm sure you do, but you can use a camera as well to make sure that you're utilizing that cover and you're not like your knees not poking out from the cover or anything like that. The next thing I'll talk about is in the absence of cover, your rifle is your cover. Let's say I'm in a completely open environment, just out at a farm or whatever, and all of a sudden I hear gunshots, and I hear not just a gunshot, but I hear like a snap crack. Like that means the bullet literally came right by me. In a dangerous environment, let's say this is like a shit hit the fan environment, someone literally just shot at you. So in the absence of cover, your rifle becomes your cover. It's very important to quickly ascertain the direction that shot came from. And when you don't have cover to get behind, your rifle becomes your cover. You need to find and ascertain where that round came from and start putting rounds in the vicinity or in the direction of where that shot came from. Because in that environment, that is a deadly force environment. Someone has a rifle, they are within reasonable distance to use the rifle to inflict serious bodily harm or death, and you literally heard the snap crack of the bullet going over your head. That is means opportunity jeopardy right there. So quickly ascertain the direction of that, where the rounds are coming from, and you're going to return fire with as much accuracy as possible, and it's important to be moving while you do it. That is one option. Another option is the old "when I'm up, he sees me, I'm down" adage of as soon as you're shot, you want to hit the deck immediately. The only problem with that is if they have already ascertained your direction and your location to the point where they could take a shot, and it was close enough to where you heard the snap crack of the bullet going over your head, you just getting on the ground, like all you did was you just got on the ground, like, and you're static and you're not moving. You may or may not be in a position of defilade. Defilade meaning a defilade is a dip in the contour of the ground that you're walking on. And a defilade is just like a ditch that you can get down into to where you are no longer skylined in that environment. It's kind of limited cover. So like if you just hit the deck and they are already shooting at you, now you helped yourself a little bit, meaning like you made yourself a slightly smaller target, but he still knows where you are and he's still going to be able to shoot at you. And now that you're laying on the ground, you're like kind of stuck there. Versus if you can be moving while you're shooting and put rounds on target in that person's spot, what that does is it can help flush them out of that spot. And now you're moving and they're moving, but if your skills are better than their skills and your nerves are more iron than their nerves, you may be able to flush them out of their piece of cover to be able to take a better shot. Or you may make them get down and get into that cover deeper because they are now scared of you. And that buys you enough time, space, and opportunity to go find a piece of cover that you can fight from. You know what I mean? So it's not always best to just, I'm up, he sees me, I'm down, because that makes you static. Especially if you're in a completely open environment and there's no defilade for you to get into that you can use as some sort of limited cover. Sometimes it's better just to keep moving. You know what I mean? Just go. Go while you're shooting, but go. All right, something else I'll mention, again, I learned from James over at Tactical Response, motionless operators ventilate easily. Motionless operators ventilate easily. So what that means move, all right? If you are motionless, standing in a static environment, you will be ventilated easily, so move. That closes out what I really wanted to talk about here, guys. Again, this is just kind of like a high-level summary of the important stuff. What's really important is for you guys to go out and get training on this stuff. Again, I've kind of summarized 20 years of experience using a rifle in a professional environment, and I've summarized it pretty quickly. What's really important is for you guys to go out and get training. Take some of these things that you have learned at a conceptual level and take them to a class and apply them. You are going to listen to what the instructor tells you to do and do that. But there may be things that you're expected to do where, like, maybe you didn't explain all the nuances, and you can use some of this information as theoretical primer for you to help, like, train on these things and get better at the use of a fighting rifle. So that's all I got for now, guys. If you found value in this video, please like, comment, subscribe, share it with a friend, and until next time, train hard and carry your gun.